everybody. I hope you can see me, hear me. If you can just get some thumbs up in chat, that'd be great, so we know that you can hear me. Brilliant, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and this is really exciting. We've got a packed lineup for you today that I definitely believe will add value to your business. So thank you so much for joining us. If it's your first time joining an online broker think tank, welcome. Actually, if it's your first time, why don't you just say hello in the chat, just so we can welcome you, make you feel really comfortable and welcomed. If you haven't been on a think tank before, the online broker think tank, where we are a platform which is designed to resolve challenges for brokers. So we're a community where we come collectively to discuss ideas, share best practice, and aid one another. And we have the belief that the best research, tools, and innovation arise from those experiencing the challenges. And so the answers to our problems probably exist in this room. And then also in highlighting and promoting initiatives that help brokers, we believe will contribute to the advancement of the industry. So anyone who can share in any of those values, you're very welcome to participate and join in. So today we have three guest panelists. We will have Eric Dill from Quickli. So he's one of the co-founders and CEO of Quickli. If you haven't come across Quickli yet, you will certainly want to use this application by the end of this session. We've got Jess Peletier joining us also from Seed Financial. She'll be talking about how she works a 5-hour work week after working ridiculous hours as a broker, like many of us, and worked out what was really important in her business and how to get the most time back in her day. So that'll be exciting. And then we'll also be talking to William Gomez. So William Gomez is one of the managing directors at Scott & Broad, which is a personal indemnity insurance business that looks after the mortgage broking industry. And he'll be talking about how to avoid some of the stresses involved in customer complaints and compliance issues and being taken to Africa and all that fun, exciting stuff, as well as a little bit around cybercrime and how it's impacting the industry. And then we'll be finishing off the day with a discussion where there'll be an opportunity for you to ask some questions, share your thoughts. And obviously an hour and a half is not enough time to cover all these topics. So we then invite you to the closed Facebook group to continue the conversation afterwards as well. There's a number of experts in the room, some great industry heads and experts in their own right who are here to contribute as well, and will be in the closed group. So you'll be very well staffed. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us on the Online Broker Think Tank. I've been actually really excited about having this conversation. And this is the first time we've met, but I feel like I kind of already know you, being like fanboying from afar somewhat. I guess following, probably my first time I came across Quickli was just reading people's comments on finance and coffee. And then quickly trying to work out why people were so excited. And then had to play around with it myself and spoke to a few brokers that I work quite closely with, and they were just like, this is the best thing. So look, it's exciting for me to get a chance, I guess, to talk to you and hear a little bit more about your journey on how you got there, and why you built what you built. But probably just to kick us off, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what your experience has been, what your relationship is to the industry at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Cool. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, backgrounds. I guess I've been in the industry about going on 8 years. Started off as sort of an in-house broker for a property investment company. And yeah, they sort of showed me the ropes. And shortly after that, switched over to Connective. So worked with Connective for a little while. And I'd say about 5-6 years ago, finished up with Connective, went out on my own. Became a self-employed broker, and that was really cool. Just saw a bunch of really good people in the industry doing some great things, and I think it suited my personality type to, yeah, just sort of embrace the people I could be doing life with, in a way, you know, in the industry. And so yeah, so thanks to Connective, I got to see a lot of those people and meet a lot and make friends with a lot. And all it really did was kind of motivate me to go out on my own and be amongst it. And yeah, that was, I guess, 6 years ago now, and have been doing it ever since and loving it. But yeah, now with, like you said, Quickli, things have definitely taken a sharp turn. I can't pretend I'm writing too many loans these days. Yeah, my interest is a little divided, but yeah, it's been awesome.
Look, I think it's a really great story, and it's not too dissimilar to mine. So I actually originally started off in banking, which we don't talk about before moving over into third party. But my background was as a business coach, self-employed business coach for a period there, and then working for aggregation groups and franchise groups. And similar to yourself, having that inside view and just going, well, I know where the cool people are, and I know where I want to be situated. Until for me, I found a great brokerage that I could be a part of, and really, get my hands dirty. And even this platform really it's about promoting the broker's voice back into the industry, and the innovation that really comes, and best practice that comes out of brokerages. And I've got a strong belief that one is that it's actually, we don't need to sit here and wait for disruption to happen, but we can disrupt ourselves, first of all. And second, that the best solutions for brokers will come from brokers. Those people are experiencing this every day. And I've seen it firsthand in my coaching. Sometimes I think I actually, as a business coach, I've got very little to offer other than examples of other brokers I've spoken to. Where I say, well, I don't know, this person's doing that or that person's doing that. But really found that. And I think your story is a great story that has really, I guess, proves that. And so I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit more about, I guess, your experiences as a broker, what frustrations you may have come across, and what led you to build really good servicing calculators, or ability to compare servicing calculators. It's such a great tool.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about disruption. I feel like this industry, if you don't disrupt your own business, the industry will find a way to do it for you. And I think, we all would have probably done more volume over the last couple of years than any of us did prior to that. And it was the same story for me, and things got really hectic in such a good way, but yeah, just really hectic. And I found that my systems and my procedures and all that were starting to break down a bit. The volume and it was there, and maybe the manpower really wasn't. So we had a look at sort of where the bottleneck was. And so maybe taking a step back, I've got a background in engineering. So that was back when I lived in the States, and got a degree in naval architecture and marine engineering, and never touched it since. So there's a very technical side of me that loves a good system and structure, and loves being able to solve the problem that most people are seemingly avoiding trying to solve. And when we were looking at the bottleneck for us, it was this preliminary assessment stage where the leads were coming in, but we couldn't get the recommendations out fast enough because of all the work that goes into making a proper, bid compliant recommendation. With everything, there's the document collection and the servicing calculators, and calling BDMs to workshop policy, and waiting on callbacks, and product comparisons, funds to complete calculators, right? So there's just so much stuff that we're doing just to get a product recommendation out the door. And for me, it reached a point where I said, man, it should not take this long. It shouldn't be this hard. And yeah, I guess that was kind of the birthplace of Quickli for us. By no means is it a brand new idea. I think many of us listening to this right now would know that our aggregators have a version of Quickli existing inside of the CRMs. But for us, it was all about making something that was reliable and making something that would have enough value to where people would spend a little bit of money on, making it a key part of their workflow and of their business. So yeah, that's probably what helped motivate Quickli more than anything, was just this bottleneck of preliminary assessment work.
Which is, yeah, it's like one of the things I've seen in reflection, and I've introduced a few brokers to Quickli, is many times even a great CRM or great program overlooks, or I'll even say compliance, or running into danger here. We kind of forget that there's a human who's actually interacting with this system and actually applying their experience and their knowledge and their expertise. And I know when Best Interest Duty first came out, probably the brokers I struggled with the most in helping them make some changes were those who were most experienced. And I was like, you mean I've got to get out of my head onto paper what I know that I just know? Now I have to actually demonstrate that I know it. I've seen like a tool like Quickli it's almost been an extension of good quality brokers thinking and just helping them to get to that answer quicker based on what they already know. So it's not just a tool, it's not just a compliance tool, it's not just a tool to help a customer. It's just a tool to help brokers extract what's already in their head out as well. Yeah, I was thinking this, I just love that aspect of it. And I've seen many brokers almost use it as a tool that they can play with even when they don't have a customer, to help them generate ideas, run scenarios in their head, work out what's actually happening, or what lenders have an appetite for what, which is, rather than originally, pulling up some sort of long form credit policy and starting to read policy or something.
Yeah, and we had some brokers in the early days raise the question, do we feel like Quickli will try to push out the need for the broker in that sense? If we're doing all the work for the, that typical question, that's not anything new. But for us, it gave us some pause for a second, but really only a brief second, because I strongly believe that in no way, shape, or form is a platform like Quickli ever going to eliminate the broker. To me, it's only going to complement the broker service in a very powerful way. I think it's already proving that. We perhaps underestimated how many people were, going to share their screens when they're interacting and using Quickli, and I love that, because we started doing that in our own practice with the amount of customers. I mean, they were kind of guinea pigs for me in the early days, because no one knew that Quickli existed except for us in-house, and I've started telling my customers about what it is and what it does and how it kind of peels back the curtain on showing what assessment rates are, but not just explaining it, but actually showing them a visual of the impact it's having, or a visual of what a credit card's doing to their borrowing capacity. Or, there's 100 different examples where when you can put that on a screen for them to see and digest and, in real time, just be able to point to stuff, it just opens up their eyes to say, whoa, this is, enlightening, first of all, but I'm so glad you showed me this. It just adds a lot more credibility to that conversation, rather than, me just on the phone telling them a bunch of this stuff across 20-30-minute conversation. And they just have to kind of take my word for it that these servicing calculators really are as conservative as I'm claiming they are. So I think, there's a very, the concept behind what we were doing with Quickli in the early days was multifaceted. And that became one of them pretty quickly. Was we wanted to use it as a place to educate, almost, educate and enlighten the customers we were dealing with.
I find that fascinating. And I came out of a conversation this morning with our exec team, and one of the people on our board own a great international marketing and branding business out of New Zealand. they consult to some of the biggest digital platforms in finance around the world. And he was talking about the difficulty some people have with when they go digital, they think transaction and they forget customer experience. Where a digital offering or anything that is automated, it doesn't work unless it's actually enhancing the customer experience that is a person evolving. So either one or two things can go wrong. Either people have a great digital experience and then in the middle of that experience, they get handed over to a person who's an umpty and destroys the experience, which I've seen with some organizations. Or what actually happens is, and this is where I think the future for mortgage brokers are going, is if you think your skill set has been your ability to fill out forms and do servicing calculators and navigate through the I guess minefield that is lender policy. If that's your skill set, I'd say in 2 years' time, as we're entering into a digital world, 2 to 5 years' time, you're going to need to change your skill set because yes, sure, some of that is going to be replaced by technology and automation. But your ability to take a customer on a journey and really explore their needs and educate them and give them a great experience around actually them understanding what their needs are and why the solution that you're selling them hits home and hits the mark. Technology is a great enhancer of that. And you're talking about what Quickli can do, where you actually can open up in front of the customer and actually show and demonstrate what's going on and why they actually need you. Because you're the one who understands these things and can actually give context to it and how that actually applies to them. In a complete digital world, they don't get that explanation. They can go interact with the technology, but it doesn't give it, there's no one giving it meaning. And that's why I'm a big believer that the future doesn't belong to digital, it belongs to digital plus broker. It's having 100%. That combination. There'll be some people who love digital. I think 5-10% of the market will still use digital, a direct digital offering. But I think what we need to be aware of, and it's why we're having this conversation, is digital plus broker definitely beats broker. And we need to actually embrace these tools like Quickli that I think are going to enhance the customer experience and give them a greater experience.
And well, you've got tools that could be customer facing and help really advocate the customer experience side of things. But then you have the tech that's out there that is really just putting hours back in your day. And let's not underestimate how nice it is to have a few extra hours back in your day for family time or to make sure you don't have to miss dinner. I mean, the amount of times I'd be pushing my limits with 2 kids and working the late hours and, I'd be getting the call, like, when are you coming? When are you coming? And when you start to reflect on how many minutes of the day you spend doing tedious, trivial filling in of forms and servicing calcs and researching and waiting on the phone. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. I know that, everyone, but the amount of tech that's out there that can put real hours back in your day. I can't imagine not having a lot of those pieces of tech in our industry or in our practice right now. For all those reasons.
Can we explore that a little bit? Because look, our theme today is making things easy. And there is a lot of stress out there. There is a lot of people who, to your point, are working the 60, 70, 80 hours a week. They've got a young family at home. I think the COVID and being in lockdown, and many of us started working from home. I know myself. I just forgot to stop working because I felt like I was at work 24/7. And then you remember as a kid, come into the room and say, Dad, it's when's dinner? And you're like, oh, maybe earlier than 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. What tips or advice would you give people, I guess, in that mindset right now? What should they be looking at? Where should they be going? Who should they be talking to? What should they be thinking about?
I think, what was really important for me, because I've been all the PD days and was told a lot of, years. And what worked for me was finding what worked for my business, meaning it wasn't everything. And what works for people just perhaps wasn't going to work for me. So yeah, my first bit of advice is just find out what works for you, because it may not be the same as everybody else's solution. But with that said, what really worked for us, well before Quickli existed, was Slack. So I know that Slack is widely used around the world, perhaps not so much in the mortgage broking industry. But yeah, it's been an absolute game changer for us. I can't imagine anyone doing, I don't know, it's not even huge volumes. Let's say like you're working on 10 to 20 active deals, right? At any stage in the pipeline, just 10 to 20 active deals at once. You need to have something like Slack. And why not use the platform that's the most popular in the world? Slack allows you to just put each one of your customers in their own channel, like their own little group text message chat with your staff. So it doesn't matter if you have 1 staff or 10 staff, whoever you're collaborating with in your office around each deal, when you can just have the screen open on your page and you can just communicate, because yeah, we all know how busy we are, and the amount of times you just rapid fire questions and answers with your team on certain status updates for certain deals or whatever it might be, when it all lives in a neatly categorized way, man, it took a real burden off of us trying to manage the workload. So that's practical. I mean, yeah, Sherlock's making headway. I know Sherlock's doing great things. We haven't yet implemented them because I've been overwhelmed with other things. So it's been a little while since I've implemented new tech. But I know Sherlock is saving people a lot of time and energy and producing big wins for their clients. Loom, well, yeah, that's actually something I just got a part of. I mean, in the last 2 years, if there's one thing this pandemic's been great for, it's getting all of us comfortable with video calls. Like the idea of telling a client 3 years ago, hey, I'm not really going to be able to meet you at that coffee shop, but let's just jump on a video call for the first time ever meeting. You're a new lead, but like, let's do it. It's okay. Like that would have been strange 3 years ago. And now it's the norm. And for that reason, it's made me and probably a lot of other people a lot more comfortable doing a video recording and sending that to people. So, in our case, it's often we're sending these video recordings internally to explain things and create demo videos or whatever. But there's no reason why brokers can't use Loom to create these nifty little 2-3 minute videos just explaining stuff instead of having to type out some lengthy email that may or may not get misinterpreted. So yeah, Loom's actually probably a really good handy thing now.
100%. I've recently embraced Loom. Even if you think of the old policy and procedure guidelines that people used to write up and leave in a drawer somewhere, no one ever used to look at it because, let's be honest, you never have time to update them anyway. It's so much easier just to shoot a Loom video and say, okay, this is our process for, it's filling out a fact find, and you record it once and it's there. And if you ever need to change it, you just, next time you have to do one, you just record it again. And you just have a library of videos rather than, reams of paper sitting in a drawer somewhere. It's been an absolute godsend. I'll do a shout out to, I guess, Broker Engine and Trello as well. You're talking about Slack, and there's some other similar systems people are using. I've only just started to look at Slack myself, actually. I was looking at another program called Rundle for some customer interactions, and the person who I was talking to said, well, look, yes, I can show you Rundle, but you should also be looking at Slack. There's a reason why it's as popular as it is. So great tip. Well, it gets back to just quickly on what you're doing. Just tell us a little bit more about Quickli, what it actually does, why brokers should, I guess, engage with it. And I'm just putting it out there. I'm a huge fan. It's such one of those small little problems that you didn't know was a problem until someone came up with a solution. And it's changed. It's absolutely changed the way that a lot of the brokers I work with interact.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Quickli in the early days was met, and rightfully so, with a lot of skepticism by any new customer who would hear about it and jump on the platform. And still is today, I'm sure, by a lot of customers. But yeah, simply put, Quickli is just solving the servicing calc dilemma that we all face by bringing in, well, we're over 24, so we're up to, I think, 24 lenders now on the platform, where you put in a single set of inputs and we deliver 24 lender results right there on the screen. The thing about Quickli is that nothing about it is designed to be generic or just this standard approach to doing complicated things. It was uniquely built to specifically replicate each lender's methodology and each lender's results. And we have a lot of pride in that statement. It's a bold claim when we often throw out this perfect accuracy title, but we stand by it. And by no means are we infallible. This is, we're all human, and building tech is extremely hard. So we've missed stuff and we've made mistakes, but I think that's okay. Our customers have definitely proven that they're okay with that. What matters most, I believe, is not that we're not infallible. I think it's that we care enough to fix these bugs and these problems and make things better really quickly. We don't delay. We're not distracted. We're not saying, no, we've got other things to worry about, just deal with it. It's 96% accurate. You'll survive. Like, none of that. It's like, no, if it's not perfect, we jump all over that moment. And we have a whole team in place that are handling, we've got a handful of developers who are building it, and then a handful of quality control team members who are maintaining all the rates, calculators, policies, and constantly getting the lender communications and making adjustments accordingly. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. We're just solving that servicing calc headache. That was sort of Rev 1, if you will. It's early days for us. We've only been live since October last year, so eight months. We've recently seen some comments as well on Financing Coffee. Someone says, I can't believe I'm just hearing about this. And in my mind, I'm like, well, we're not even a year old yet, so you're all right. Like, you're forgiven.
I felt the same way. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what told me. So yeah.
No, so October last year was when we went live, and so we are 8 months now, and blown away by the enthusiastic feedback. Like, people are so positive. Like, we get so many unsolicited emails from people who are replying to our marketing update, just a standard marketing update, who reply back saying, OMG, I cannot believe how much I love this thing. So stuff like that, it just kind of reaffirms what we're doing and how much we love what we're doing. And we're up to 1,800 happy customers now. With plans and hopes to grow that into who knows, maybe a 5-digit number. As ambitious as that sounds, we just think that it's a platform that's solving a problem that every broker has. It doesn't matter if you're a new to industry one-man band or a 20-year veteran writing huge volumes. Every single one of us have to deal with servicing calcs and other parts of the prelim journey. And we plan on solving the full prelim journey in the near future.
Which is brilliant. Look, I have no doubt that you will definitely get to the figures that you're wanting. I'm hearing talks here from like conversations I'm having with other heads of aggregation, everything else, and everyone's like, well, what do we do with this? How do we implement it? And the momentum's there. It's fantastic. As I've said before, it's just such a great example of the solution coming from the people who deal with the problem. No one understands it better than the brokers on the front line dealing with it.
The amount of times I tell the developers where they'll push back and they'll ask for this and that, or one of them just wants a lot of feedback, and especially my business partner, he's the developer and he's the real brains behind everything that you're seeing on the technical side. And the amount of times he's like, let's just push it out and get a lot of feedback from people. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm the feedback. This is what we want. Just press on, like, trust me, this is how we should have this. Yeah, and it's been fun working with the team of developers. Yeah.
That's very cool. And I understand at the end of this session, the think tank, we've got a couple of your team and one of the other founders as well. We'll be able to answer some questions, which I think will be really, really good. I would encourage anyone to check out the website. I believe you've got a 21-day free trial as well.
Yep.
Which
and the 3-month promotion that just again tries to make it a little bit more palatable for the first few months to get a feel for it.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. But look, this conversation definitely has met my expectations. It's been fantastic talking to you.
So good.
And look, I'm excited. Part of me just wants to start throwing other problems at you. Go, well, hey, could you solve lender accreditations, or maybe some other big issues that the industry has? But it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
With sharing your journey. It's been great.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Take care. Cheers. Join us. Jess has been in the industry for a short period of time, not really. It's been around for a little while, and now I've seen her face pop up a few different times. But what actually grabbed my attention was she offered recently on Finance and Coffee to take people through her end-to-end process, and obviously started a journey herself where she was working ridiculous hours, like many of us are, and found a way, I guess, to shorten her week, so that she could spend some quality time doing other things in her life other than just doing what many of us do every single day. And I just found it really, really valuable. So I reached out to her and asked whether she could also share some of the highlights with us today. And Jess, if you can just give us everyone a wave and say hello.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
So look, maybe in your own words, if you can just quickly, I guess, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what your relationship is to the industry, would be great.
Sure. I'm Jess. I've been working as a broker in my own business since 2015, full-time. I sort of started in 2014, but just sort of mucked around, got my accreditations and all that. But since 2015, was working full-time. We specialise in investment lending for property investors. And yeah, so from there, just sort of built my own business, started off on my own, just winging it, doing it all myself, and sort of built my business from there. I don't have a huge business. We settle probably, 45 million a year. Just at the moment, I've got one full-timer and a VA, and I probably work about 5 hours a week in the business. So
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would love to settle $45 million a year, only working 5 hours a week in their business. And I think you're in some ways the epitome of what the industry is about. And I've seen a lot of brokers who were either working in a corporate bank or they had a broker experience themselves, and they thought, what, I really want to be able to offer this service to my community and the people that are important to me. The broker industry is made up of a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. There's a few mammoth giants out there, but most of us, I call it, the mum and dad broker who really just wants to look after their connections and community and add value. And I think your business epitomizes that, but you've also managed to somehow find a bit of work-life balance. Can you share a little bit, I guess? What was your situation leading up to some of the decisions you made to make changes in your business? What did that feel like? What was that experience like for you?
Well, we're at a point where I had Rob, he's my brother-in-law, he works for me full-time. So we had Rob, and I just brought on another broker, Danny, and Rob was working from home, Danny was working in the office with me while she started. And then Danny left. So there was 3 of us, like Danny was a broker, Rob was my para broker, or he was doing processing. So Rob was doing my processing. Danny was taking all her deals all the way through. And then Danny left. And we were in a period where we were super busy. And when she left, we had so much work. And so she left in July and went out on her own, which has been amazing for her. So she's doing awesome, which is brilliant. But I almost died. That 3-month period, I was just so snowed under. And I just remember in October, it was the school holidays. And my husband at the time was a school principal, had 3 kids who were also on holidays. And I couldn't, I took one day to go hiking with the family, and shit went down in the morning and I couldn't go. Like I was, I was ready just to walk and not stop walking. You know, I was in tears. I was completely overwhelmed. I couldn't breathe. Like I literally couldn't breathe. So, I mean, and that's the kind of pressure that we can be under as brokers. It can be that overwhelming and we can be that accountable to everything. And because, you know, we're dealing with people's deposits and their homes, and there's a lot of responsibility being a broker. And it was at that point that I just thought something has to change here. I can't do this. And I don't want to live like this. This is not what I signed up for. Like the reason I got into broking to start with was because I could do it from home. I could be around my family. And at least if in a job, I would have got 4 weeks holiday a year, you know, but even as brokers, it can be really difficult to take that time off. So from that point, I started making big changes in the business. And because Rob, my brother-in-law too, we were both working that hard. It wasn't just me doing everything. We were both working so hard. And yeah, it was overwhelming. And I'm sure that there's plenty of people on this call who can relate to feeling like that.
Well, look, I think what also adds to it is many of us get into this industry because we genuinely care about customer outcomes, actually doing it for the right reasons. I think it's the strength of our industry and why partly why it's growing so quickly. And you take that personally. If sometimes when you let somebody down or you know, someone's going through something and you go, well, do I take my kids to whatever sport I need to take my kids to today, or do I try to solve that problem for that client who potentially could lose their deposit? It's quite a stressful situation to be in. Yeah, look, I think your story is very relatable. So the obvious question, what did you do?
Good question, really important question. So there's a few levers that you can pull to start sort of extracting yourself out. But the first thing is you've got to make the decision that you're not going to do it all yourself anymore. That can be a really hard thing, especially if you're a bit of a control freak. I'm actually not. I love giving everything to everybody else to do. But at that time, because we'd lost a staff member, it was just really a perfect storm for us. So I just looked at ways that we could just create more space in our business. There were a lot of inefficiencies. I was working from home, Rob was working from home. It was, from memory, sort of just before COVID. And we were just, Rob used to work in my office, so he knew sort of how I work, but we work in very different styles. So there were a heap of inefficiencies in the way that we were doing things. And I sort of came to really understand this because in the February after that, Rob went on holidays and I had to do everything. So we'd already started outsourcing again. I'd used Xsource for years, and it was only once I had Danny and Rob that we stopped and we thought we'd do our own processing and bring it all in-house. But as soon as Danny left, we started outsourcing with Xsource again, and we still do now. So that was a really good way just to get rid of that bottleneck and take something completely off our plates. Anyone who saw the call that I did the other day would know that Xsource is a huge part of our business, and yeah, wouldn't be without them. Whether you were using Xsource or some other sort of outsourcing solution for that, that's a really easy way to get a quick win and free up a heap of time straight away.
Very, very good. And look, what other things were you able to implement? Look, before you answer that question, this is something which I'm personally quite passionate about, you know, coming from a coaching in my background, originally counselling, you know, around mental health as well, is I've noticed a lot of brokers and professionals in finance get a lot of their identity from what they do for their customers. So it's not only do they take it personally, so there's that emotional stress that comes with it. They don't know how to disengage or let go of control or delegate to someone else. And you did say that you're good at delegation. I want to challenge you on that or explore that just a little bit, because in my finding is you don't actually become passionate about something or good at something until you start doing it. A lot of people I work with say that, oh, they're control freaks, but it's only because they haven't started to give up control. When you do start to give up control, then you actually fall in love with delegation. But it rarely starts that way. Was there a moment for you where I guess you've discovered your love of delegating or getting people to help you, and not just it all be about you?
I think I'm sort of intrinsically lazy. I love to have the biggest bang for buck with the minimal amount of effort.
Right.
And it's not lazy with a crap outcome, it's lazy with the best outcome possible. So I think what it is, you can still be a control freak, but instead of controlling what you do to get the outcome, you just shift that to controlling your system and your culture. So for me, customer service has always been the benchmark of our business. We're responsive, we're thorough, we know our clients, they can get a hold of us within reason, and that kind of thing. Like having that really amazing customer experience is something that I'm an absolute control freak about. But now we've created a system within our business to make sure that customer service is maintained, but it doesn't have to all come from me. So yeah, it just changes from being you controlling everything to you controlling the system that controls everything.
Yeah, and you're still trying to control the outcome for the customer.
Definitely.
It's just acknowledging that maybe I can actually deliver a better outcome for my customers with help.
Well, yeah, you don't do anyone any good if you're dead.
Yeah, no, that's very true, very true. It's like I always liken it to like a parent-child relationship where, you know, I use the example of, you know, when your child falls off their bike and they hurt themselves, you don't feel hurt, first of all. You know, you don't blame the child. You go, well, how can I help that child get back on the bike and ride again? And it's the same in you know, your relationship to your business. It's like a parent-child relationship where you're trying to mature this business to be its own entity that operates on its own. It still gives value back to the world and contributes to the family, but you can't take it personally, and you can't do everything for the child, or otherwise the child never really is able to blossom. And I know it's something that you kind of just go like, oh, it just happens, but it must have taken a fair bit of work to get to that stage and understanding, well, what is my business? Who is my business? How do I support my business? How do I nurture it? How do I grow it? How do I give it the resources and the support it needs to grow? And it sounds like it's something you've done very, very well. So talking about that, what are some of the things other than outsourcing using Xsource, which is, you know, great business, and there's many others out there? What other things do you oversee? What do you measure on a daily basis? What do you look at? What do you think about when you wake up in the morning? I would love some insight into how your brain works, how your day actually runs.
Sure. Well, because we are fully online and we always have been. So COVID, we didn't miss a beat because we were already fully online, fully paperless. Everyone works from home. So that was no real change for us. So when I get up in the morning, I just look through the emails, and we use Trello, which is what that whole presentation was about. And I'm happy to share the link so anyone can jump in and have a look at that. But because we are all remote now, what we didn't have to start with was a process for doing things and a way that we could easily see everything. Our aggregator software, from a workflow perspective, just wasn't cutting it. It was too complex. And because I was the only broker, it was just really expensive for everyone to have their own logins. And the task management on that, we just didn't find was working for our business. It was really overwhelming the way that it was set up. So we still use our aggregators CRM, obviously, for the compliance and pushing the deal through and all the actual technical stuff. But we use Trello as a workflow. So now we've got all our customers in all our sort of phases of the customer journey. They all have their own card in Trello with checklists that automatically pop up. And we live and die by Trello now. where before we had no visibility of what anyone else was doing or where certain deals were. It would take a phone call where we'd both be sitting on the phone for an hour and a half to update everything, and it was just so inefficient. So now we all have access to Trello. When someone does something, they have their name, their photo, and they can put the date when a certain landmark gets done. So if I do a valuation, I put my face on there, the date that it's done, and I tick the box. So anyone then who jumps in can see that the valuation's been ordered. It just makes excess communication, excess meetings not a thing, because the goal is that anyone can jump in at any time and see exactly where a deal is at, just by jumping into their card in Trello.
And looking, we will share the link to the video as well to everybody. It's definitely worth watching, and you get quite into some of the detail around how you do it, which I think is fantastic. So rather than ask questions about that, because everyone will get the chance to look at that. One of the challenges I see is, you're a very, very busy broker. You're time poor. To set up something like Trello or Slack or Broker Engine, or there's a number of different options out there. It actually takes not just time to set it up, it takes a lot of thought, first of all, around, well, what outcome am I wanting to achieve, and how do I build a process, and how do I manage people to that process? What was your thought process like leading up to the decision that you made around, okay, I'm going to set aside time to do this? And what did that feel like? And then what was the outcome for you?
The first thing I always looked at before I hired my first employee, before I even outsourced anything, was always, what do I hate doing the most? What's killing me in my business right now? Like, what one thing? Because you can't tackle everything all at once. So you've got to think about what's the one thing that I'm absolutely hating doing right now, and what can I do about that one thing? And like Quickli, for example, servicing calculators can take you so long because they're all different. Like, even just doing one thing like that can take so much time off your plate. And I think as Quickli gets better and better, it'll take more and more of that wasted time off your plate and create that space. So it's all about incrementally creating more space in your business. It's not going to happen all at once, but it can happen really quickly once you start. And the more space that you I got Rob in originally to do my servicing calculators for me, because that was one thing. I hated the data entry. I'm not a fine detail person. I'd rush it. Rob's really fine detail orientated. So he goes in, does a really thorough job of them. And so I took that off my plate first of all. But now he uses Quickli. So that takes time off his plate, which creates more space for him to do more deals or do more customer facing things, money, income producing or customer facing. Those two things are the priority tasks. So taking something as boring and non-impacting as servicing calculators off our plates just means that we can provide that better customer service and do more important things.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's hard sometimes when you look at your business and where you're at, and then you look at the ideal business and you think, how do I ever get there? And you can't make that jump. You just can't. And sometimes, I actually posted this the other day in the closed Facebook group, that sometimes the answer to your problem doesn't exist yet. You actually have to take other steps first before the answer will come along. And I love how you position that just find one thing in your business that you can fix today. And it can be something small. It can just be one little change, and that can make a huge difference. Look, one of the things I am interested in hearing you talk about, because it almost sounds impossible, is when you talk about the 5-hour work week. Now that you've been able to outsource a lot of the grunt work within your business, what do you actually spend your time doing now? What does your week look like?
Really, the only things that I do is I look at the Trello board, make sure that everything's happening as it should. If there's anything on there that is overdue or is taking too long or has had a date pushed back too far or something like that, because all the dates are on there, so they come up when something's due. I overview that, and I just keep the team accountable to doing the things that they need to do. And I just let them know because there was a bit of resistance to changing and to using it to its full capacity. And I just said, look, I'm going to ring you every day if this is not done. It's just part of, if you want to work in our business, this is how we do it. There's just no two ways about it. And, you know, it's pretty good work from home, that kind of thing. So I've got no oversight as to how anyone spends their days. All I want oversight on, though, is that the work's getting done. So I'm always just checking to make sure that those things are done. And when I say always, like once a day, once every couple of days, because you don't need to check it every day because you know where things are at. You can see it really easily. But also because there are obviously times when you're busier or you're not busier. By keeping an eye on how things are going generally, if I can see there's 10 applications to lodge, obviously Rob is not going to be able to do that all on his own within a couple of days. Like, that's too much. So then I jump in and help. So occasionally I'll work 5 or 10 hours, and other times I work 1. So the only things that I do are the things that the broker has to do. So the IDs and the loan, or the loan structuring. Rob does a lot of that himself. He's worked with me a long time now, so he knows how we do things. But occasionally he'll, you know, have something that comes from left field or not quite know what to do, or, you know, so then I'll jump in and do that as well. But yeah, just basically the only things that I need to do as a broker are the things that I do.
Yeah, no, look, it's interesting. Look, at my brain's starting to wonder a little bit, because I'm reflecting on, I guess, conversations I've had with brokers who were in a similar situation to what you were. And I'm thinking of some examples right now where even just taking that first step into outsourcing or delegating to other people, and finding the frustration of having to train someone up, which can be difficult. Look, maybe it's something I can get you to comment on, or even just to raise. It might be turn into a bit of a discussion later. So even as in getting quality outsourcing now is becoming more difficult as well. I think COVID has kind of created that. What do you look for? What traits do you try to find in a support person that you know you can actually work with? And earlier you mentioned about being detail orientated, the fact that you'll call someone up and say, we need to get this done, and this is my way of doing it. What's made you? How have you found the right people to surround yourself with? Is what I'm asking, I guess, because it is quite difficult.
Well, Rob's my brother-in-law, right? So he kind of, it was a bit of a, working with family can really pose a lot of challenges, and it has. Like, we've worked with each other for, I think, 4 years now. And for the first couple of years, it went really well because Rob has, 35 years experience. He used to work for NAB in business banking. So he knows his way around credit and banks generally. But he was getting pretty stressed at his job, and it wasn't working out for him anymore. So I said, oh, look, come work for me, because I'm pretty, I didn't really think too hard about it, to be honest. You probably should think a little bit harder before you employ someone, but it's worked out really well. But we always said right from the start, look, family comes first. If it's not working, we're just going to pull the pin really early. And we've had conflicts and sort of worked them through, which has actually been quite good for our relationship, because he sees the best and worst of me, and I see the best and worst of him, but that's how it goes. So with Rob, I was really lucky. But if you're employing someone who's not your family, someone who's got a credit background, I think would be really beneficial. But ideally, paying a bit more and employing someone who's got experience is going to save you time. Even if it's just knowledge. Like, he'd never been a broker, he'd never worked in broking or anything like that, but he knew how finance worked. So that was really beneficial and allowed him to come in, and the learning curve wasn't quite so dramatic. You can go cheap and have someone brand new who knows nothing, but that's going to take a lot of your time, which is something you don't have. So I would always be looking for someone who's either got experience, but that's why I love outsourcing, because they do it day in, day out. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
For me, I would pay for experience, but most people have either time or money. And you go into this because you've got no time, so you must have money. And sometimes you do need to spend that money to get the leverage. And it might be expensive to start with, but it pays off really quickly.
Yeah, it's getting the right person. Look, it's probably an area which I've spent a fair bit of time is trying to help people recruit the right people into their business. Getting it wrong can be quite costly as well. So
and a waste of time.
There's another session here which I'll probably run one day around just what are the best pathways into our industry and how do we create them? I don't think we do it well as an industry. Most brokers you talk to or people in the industry are either related to someone in the industry. That's how they found out about it. They had a really poor broker experience and they thought, I could do that better. I'm going to become a broker. Or they've come out of banking and they've gone, well, I don't want to just offer one product. I want to be able to really service my customer. Outside of that, it's not many other places it comes from. Even joining the industry, if you're new to industry, there's really is only one or two really good options out there to get training unless you know the right person. Look, and I know it's a little bit off topic, but it's just where my brain goes thinking about, trying to solve some of these problems that we face. I think it's somewhere where we, definitely a conversation we need to have in the future. Is there any, I guess, just in closing, is there any final tips or thoughts that you have? Say, if there's a broker, on this session today who's sitting there feeling stressed, who may have literally seen your name and the subject that you'll be talking about and thought, I need this. Now, what parting words of hope do you give them? What should their next step be?
I think the next step, once you're just overwhelmed, just look at what you can cut out quickly. Look at the things that you hate doing that are taking up far too much of your time, and just do one thing at a time. Just start creating something. Because if you don't take that step to do something, and it doesn't take long, like with Xsource, for example, or any other outsourcing one, they're pay per deal. So you can use them really incrementally just to take that excess off your plate. It doesn't have to be a massive big thing. It can just be, okay, I'm just going to give them a deal a week just so I can have that tiny bit of time back. You can make it work for you, but just getting someone who knows what they're doing straight up, it just makes it so much easier, because having to train someone is super time consuming. And I just think employing someone should be your last option, because that's going to take a lot of time. Even just creating the system, you don't have a system yet. You need to have a decent system built. You need to know what's important to you, so you can get someone in and go, okay, this is how we do it. But if you get someone in out of desperation, then everyone's going to be winging it, and it can end up being a lot more mess than which you don't want. You're already messy enough, Yeah.
It's that the difference between delegating and abdicating responsibility. And I've seen many brokers do it. They just get someone in, they dump everything on them, and that person leaves, and then they have to get back involved in the business again. It's a vicious cycle. Look, I usually don't say this until the end, but because I just know you're as passionate about it as me. If anyone is out there really feeling the stress of this, as in, I'm happy to give half an hour up to talk to anybody out there, or even point them in the right direction and give them some advice. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm not going to try to talk you into anything. I just genuinely think that this is something we need to continue to talk about. That's part of the reason why I created this platform in the first place. And I know you've been out there very publicly offering assistance, and I've seen you help a lot of people as well. And I just want to get that message out there that people, you're not alone. If you're out there right now feeling really, really stressed in your business, you're not alone. There is people who are generous enough and willing enough to help you out and point you in the right direction. So don't keep it to yourself. Reach out to someone. Reach out to your aggregator. Reach out to some groups like us, or even people like Jess who experienced people in the industry who know what it's like and been through it. Feel free to. Well, look, I really appreciate your time, and we could talk for ages, and it's such a refreshing story, because it's a true success story. I think of what broker businesses, the journey that we're meant to go on. It hasn't happened overnight for you, but you found your way there where you're able to get some of your life back and make things a bit easier. And that's fantastic guy, first of all. I've had a few dealings with him where he's been able to provide some fantastic advice. He sits here in Scotland Broad and looks after, he's the managing director of the arm that looks after mortgage brokers. So he has a lot of dealings with, financial claims, fraud claims, AFCA complaints, all that sort of fun stuff that nobody else really wants to talk about. And I thought, when it comes to making things easy, one of the best ways to make things easier is to actually, I guess, preempt what could go wrong. So I've invited William just to have a chat with us today. William, are you around?
Yes, definitely am.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. Look, thank you so much again for coming on. Just in a nutshell, introduce who you are, what you're passionate about, what you do, and just let people know a little bit about, I guess, the type of things that you do in the industry.
Yep, for sure. First of all, I want to say thank you for the opportunity, and I can't imagine a better way to spend, I guess, a day just after a long weekend than with you all, and I guess getting the brain thinking with all these presenters and all these topics. So just a bit about myself. So 10 years in the insurance industry. This year, I spent 7.5 years working for a few insurers. First as a claims consultant. So I've kind of done most of the roles. I did a claims consultant role. I was an SME underwriter, which meant I was kind of pricing up the risks for small, medium enterprises. From there, I kind of start to get a bit of taste of the sales side of things and the coming up with a solution for my insurance brokers. And it was there where I transitioned into a BDM type role. And I really like that whole relationship piece about, helping my brokers. They had an issue with, trying to get cover for a client. And I was always the one who was like, look, you know what, I'm going to go into bat for you. I'm going to go up against technical and we're going to get this approved. So that's where I kind of got the thrill, helping my clients, which at the time were brokers. But it was around 1.5 years into my BDM role that I kind of started to realize, hang on, I'm helping brokers, but I'm only offering one solution. What if I got closer to the client and then I was the one who could use the market, all the insurers in the market? So that's kind of how brought me over to Scott & Broad 3 years ago as an account manager. And then I was lucky enough at the start of this year that the position came up that for our mortgage broking division, where we have a facility which helps just over 5,000 brokers throughout Australia,
Okay.
as well as a few aggregators as well, just to be, I guess, to head it up and to run it. And I think talking about before, you were saying about your clients and your community, I think that was the really exciting part for me. So I'd spent obviously 3 years where I've been across all types of risks. Like even to this day, I can still do any types of risk, fintechs, lenders, it can be an electrician, a plumber, but the chance to really specialize in an industry where Scott & Broad themselves have had an involvement for over 15 years. So it's a pretty extensive history. We've got a lot of, I guess, support from a lot of the aggregators, and a lot of people have experienced our product as well. It was just, a great opportunity to, take hold of this community. And as you said, sometimes, with your clients, it can get a bit personal in terms of fighting for them. And that's what I've kind of found. I've enjoyed, the discussions with the insurers, but also I'll probably touch on a bit later about the AFCA complaints where, you see a complaint, you're like, that's not right. And it's, we're going to push this as far as we can push it to try to get you the right result.
Yeah, it's, and look, unfortunately, in your role, we don't really hear from people like you until we need you, which is not good. And look, I've across my career, I've had a few interactions with AFCA, not myself personally, but helping clients or brokers that they've been working with, and it's usually one of those things where you don't really think about it until you have a problem. And then usually we call someone like you for help with some of this stuff, or the license holder as well.
Yeah.
What in a changing world, and it is a changing world, and probably one of the things I would love for you to touch on is the increase in cybercrime. I know within the brokerage that I work in, I've seen 3 examples in just the last 12 months where it hasn't always been on the broker side, isn't it? It's been the one time was a client solicitor that got done where a client received an email saying this is a bank account details that you need to send the deposit to, and unfortunately that wasn't the solicitor emailing them, or etc. What are you seeing out there, and what should we be aware of, and what should we actually be trying to protect ourselves from?
Yep. No, look, definitely a lot more activity, and it's only very natural. Like, just to give you a bit of context, I think the first cyber insurance policy in Australia was probably, I'd say, maybe 12, 13 years ago.
Right.
And that kind of market in itself has kind of evolved so much that if you look back 3 or 4 years, 5 years ago, cyber insurance, yeah, quite like it was quite competitive, like quite competitively priced. But over the last few years, with COVID, with everyone, it's becoming more of a digital world. Hackers are becoming more sophisticated. Insurers have actually gotten a bit more scared now because they're saying, "Wow, like this is a risk we can't quantify. Like, how are we going to quantify? You can do all these flood maps, you can do all these like natural disaster calculations, but how can you calculate how fast these hackers are going to build better tools? How can you account for all this human error where people are going to click on these links that they thought were genuine, and they're going to be compromised or get an invoice that they say, okay, yep, in a busy world, everyone's just trying to pump out as much tasks as they can, and they see an invoice and say, yep, I've looked at it, looks about right, I'm going to pay it, and we're going to get done with it." So there's a lot more exposure that we're definitely seeing right now, and that's kind of reflective as well in the insurance market. Like, you can see the cyber losses that a lot of the big insurers are suffering from these big events that you see on the news are contributing to that. But also you can see it in the conditions. Like, there's so many insurers now that are putting on sub limits to ransomware attacks. So anywhere where ransomware meaning, someone gets a hold of your system and says, "We're locking it down unless you pay us 50,000 or a Bitcoin or a couple of Bitcoins or a couple of $1 million." That's ransomware. So insurers are seeing that they're getting hit by it more, so they're putting limits, whereas before it was to the full policy limit. Also, some insurers are saying, look, if you don't have multi-factor authentication, we're not covering you. So it's a combination of a lot more exposure. We're seeing a lot more activities as well.
Yeah, look, I'm going to say this, and it's got nothing to do with Scott and Broad. I'm not trying to, obviously I'm plugging you a little bit because you're on here, but I think every broker business should be going back and looking at their PI insurance and seeing whether the cover still is relevant for, I guess, the environment that we're in right now. Because there is some changes, and not all insurance is equal. So the first person who flagged this with me was actually Zarko from MFAA. So he's one who said, "Well, Andrew, this is going to become a really big thing, and we need to look at it." And it works on two. It's good for two reasons. One, yes, it protects you and makes sure that you're safe, but it's also becoming something that our customers are becoming more concerned about, is whether we have adequate protection in place to protect them as well. So it's not just insurance; it's what cyber protection do you have in place? And it's becoming a point that you can sell, or a point of difference that you can sell on, where you can actually say, my business is safe. We've got additional software in play to make sure that that you are protected as this becomes a bigger issue. It's an important part of developing that trust. What about AFCA? That's my favorite people. Look, they have since they've, I guess, restructured and became AFCA. When they first started out, they were horrific and very difficult to deal with. They have got a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper, so I'll give them that. But what are you seeing in regards to customer complaints? What's actually hitting AFCA at the moment? What should we be aware of or be thinking about as, I guess, business owners and brokers?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I guess for me, the position is a bit biased because obviously quite a few brokers and seeing quite a few notifications and claims coming through. So I think the sentiment is AFCA is still doing AFCA. AFCA is still pretty pro-consumer. I think they have, I know I was hearing probably a few years ago where they were accused of kind of coaching some consumers into putting in certain complaints or wording certain complaints in a certain way just so they can get pushed through as well. I think they've gotten a little bit of a scare over the last 1 or 2 years, so they have backed off. But look, definitely always seeing always seeing different types of complaints. And the one that's probably scaring me a bit more the most at the moment is probably concerns around rate lock. And I've got a few incidences that are currently ongoing with that as well. So that would have been, the customer, obviously now we're in an environment of raising interest rates, and a customer would have said, yep, you know what, can I lock in the fixed rate at X amount? And then for whatever reason, someone would have sent it to the wrong team. And then the bank BDM would have said, hey, you know what, don't worry, it's at the wrong team, but you know what, we can fix this. And then the BDM goes on holidays, and then 5 weeks later, the issue's still not resolved. And then, by then interest rates have already gone up, and then all the banks have got a hard stance on it. And they say, you know what, we're not budging. That's the new rate.
I can almost guarantee that any broker who writes volume, this will happen to at least once in this current market. But it's a real valid point, because and I've had this discussion with some of the brokers I've worked with. We've been in an environment for the last however many years where interest rates have been coming down, and customers don't feel a loss or don't get emotional about interest rates going down.
Yeah.
Because they're saving money, and even if their rates aren't going down by as much as they should be, and they're paying more than they should, it doesn't really activate them to engage with the broker. Yeah. But in a market where rates are going up, it's an emotional time for customers, and emotional customers tend to complain more, express their dissatisfaction more. And we are going to see a rise in customer complaints. We just have to be ready for it. And sometimes it's going to be things outside of your control that you've got no, ability to actually, determine the outcome. But things are going to happen in this environment where a customer may not have cared as much previously. They will care now. And so they should be. Someone just made a comment in the chat, and I couldn't agree more. Customers, they expect us to have a crystal ball, and the number of conversations. I get a text message at 7:30 a.m. the other morning from someone asking me what interest rates we're going to do, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like, as in, maybe once upon a time I thought I had an idea, but there's so many external factors right now influencing the local economy. We have no idea either, but customers are looking for someone to blame if things go wrong, and we could be an easy target. So what advice could you give people to, I guess, help them prepare for complaints that might come, or be in a better position if something does go to AFCA, that they can handle things better?
Yeah, man, Andrew, I think you hit the nail on the head. We're in even today in society, we're in a society where, no one really wants to take responsibility. When something goes wrong, everyone wants to point the finger at someone else. And I guess, a lot of it, like I troll through hundreds of complaints. That's probably half of the complaints where it's, the broker did whatever they could in terms of, it was the customer who went and, signed the contract unconditionally, and then is like, all right, I need you to get me the finance on it in like 3 weeks. Or ones where it was like, they didn't disclose certain situations, or, it was an investment that all their serviceability levels were fine, and they went ahead with the investment anyway, and then they ended up, some circumstances changed, and they lost the property as well. So, yeah, I think it's just being prepared that, people are going to, when things go bad, people are not going to want to take responsibility. And it's kind of looking at how, I guess, two parts to that question. I was going to say, number one is probably you're not alone. So leverage your resources, leverage your compliance team at the aggregator. That's what they're there for, or whoever the licensee is, to help you respond to the matter. And I guess in turn with doing that, they will probably notify us fairly early. And we always, look, I don't mind it. For us, we have sometimes aggregators or brokers who come to us like a month or 2 months after the complaint, and they're like, hey, this is already reached AFCA, it's already far gone, here, we need you to respond. I'm like, well, okay, we still can, but we have to see whether you've prejudiced anything in the last 2 months that kind of could have got us to a more favorable outcome, and that's the risk. But it's, leveraging your compliance team, because even with the policy, I guess, that we offer and most policies offer, there's usually like a 1 hour legal advice that you're able to use with the lawyers to kind of get some advice on, like a potential claim from the policy. So yeah, get them involved. They'll get us involved. We can have a quick chat about, okay, this is what's happened. This is what my response is going to be. Do you think I should amend any words? I've done that for a few clients in recent times as well, just because the complaints process can be quite unclear for a lot of people who haven't gone through it before. So I guess number one is, yeah, just knowing that people are there that do this quite regularly and can give you a few pointers how to go through it. The other part is just, I think, really, like, obviously a lot of brokers are going to know about their own processes, and with compliance, making sure contemporaneous notes, making sure they're across all the most recent types of, I guess, deals and grants that are going on. But I guess another kind of proactive piece of advice that I'd seen is also knowing your client, like knowing your client in respect to who are the ones that you think that, they're quite demanding, like for what, they might be like a $200,000, $300,000 loan, and they're very demanding for that. They're a lot of hard work. So I guess when you're in that qualifying client stage, it's like, when something really goes wrong, what's this guy going to do? Is he going to cut me some slack, or is he going to like go after me for everything? Like, is this a real relationship, or is this just a very transactional relationship? And just to add to that as well, knowing your client's situation at the moment as well, like obviously now it's a bigger topic about financial abuse, and knowing when you can recognize those situations, but also when, I guess, two people go out to take out a loan together, what's the downside when they split up and then the house has to be separated, and then they're going to complain to say, I didn't know that, I signed that, or one of the partners is more involved in the loan application, and then when something goes wrong, they come back and they say, look, you know what, I didn't intend to do that. I've suffered a loss, and you forced me to do that as well. So I think we can't have a crystal ball, but it's just like trying to anticipate certain scenarios.
Yeah, it's, again, I know everyone's heard this before, but document. If you're having a conversation with the client and you just feel a little bit uncomfortable, document that conversation. A history of documentation, and I remember it was years ago now, when I was a lender for a bank. I'm talking 20 years ago. It's a bit embarrassing. I remember I had a customer complaint where the customer claimed that they never made a particular application, going through a divorce, very similar to what you're saying. And the only thing that saved me was the fact that I could demonstrate, and I think demonstrate's a key word here, that on numerous occasions I've had the same conversation again and again and again because it was documented.
Yep.
So they said, well, it's likely that you had that conversation with these people as well, because you can demonstrate documented evidence that you do have that conversation. If I didn't have that demonstration in place, I could have been in a lot more trouble. So yeah, definitely, I know some people hate documenting things. Find a way. There's some great tech pieces now that you can use to help document conversations. I had a conversation with a broker recently, and this is when you're getting older, where they're a younger broker, and they said that they've done applications with clients right now who not only have they not physically met, but most of, like 90% of their conversation has been brought through Messenger. Haven't even spoken over the phone, like under 25s, buying property, don't want to talk on the phone, just want to send messages. They said, but the great thing is I can just screenshot all the messages and use it for my notes. I'm like, well, I guess that's an upside where, that's great documentation. So sometimes documentation isn't sitting there taking notes by hand. There's other options as well. So yeah, look, it is very important. It's very important to listen to your license holder at your aggregator. As much as I hate to say that, sometimes that relationship can be difficult, but make sure you make it less difficult, because unfortunately, when you get in trouble, and you highlighted this earlier, William, you do need these people in your corner. They are there to actually protect you and support you and train you and help you. They're not against you. They're meant to be on your team. They're on your side. So definitely leverage up that relationship.
And just one other point I was going to add to what you were saying with the license holder as well. The way, and I'm guessing some brokers probably haven't gone through a complaints process with AFCA. AFCA names the licensee. So not that brokerage. Whenever a complaint comes through, AFCA will search for whoever the licensee is and name them first.
Right.
So it's the licensee who's going to be dragged into AFCA, and then it's for the licensee to say, oh, actually, this is one of my credit representatives. So yeah, you always want to be as forthcoming and cooperative with your licensee, because ultimately there could be a financial impact to them as well. And then obviously you don't want that affecting your working relationship.
And don't hide. And look, early confession works. Don't hide anything. Contact them early if you think something's going wrong, so then they can actually work with you. I've seen it where people try to hide things. Your licensee knows a lot more than what you think they know about the situation. There's no point in trying to hide things from them. They have access to a lot of information. Just be forthcoming, forthright, give all the information. And yeah, be as transparent as you can.
Yep.
And I know people like myself, like when I've been in that situation where I've been looking after a broker, I will go into bat for you, and I will go in as hard as I can, and I will, I'll definitely make sure you're protected. But look, thanks, man. I really appreciate your time and having this conversation. I did look. There's a few other people who joined the room now, and I did see Angus had logged in from Quickli. I'm aware of the time, and if people need to go, feel free to leave. But and there will be just for those who want access to some of the I guess the resources that we're talking about, they will be shared in the closed Facebook group, which you can search on Facebook. There's also if you did register for this event through Eventbrite, you will receive an email as well. There is a CPD code as well.